Poppy Playtime's multiplayer game is by all means dead. It's gone almost a year with no updates, has less players than a Roblox ripoff of the same game, went through multiple massive controversies, and is hated by all of its remaining players, dipping lower by the day. But after one of the most successful Steam launches of any multiplayer game ever, tens of thousands of players on at a time, and a marketing push so crazy it caused people to literally try digging up graves to find lore secrets, what happened to Project Playtime? Well, going back to October 2022, the Poppy developers were in a weird position. They had just released the extremely successful Poppy Playtime Chapter 2 in May, but with the upcoming Chapter 3's development time taking way longer than expected, they needed a way to stay popular while they worked on the main game. And they would announce their solution to this problem on October 31st with a whole new game called Project Playtime, a free-to-play co-op horror experience set to release later that same year in December 2022. And while this was a pretty big announcement, the devs still needed a way to market this game for the following months while they finished up the title for release, and this is where the grave digging stuff started. See, looking at the original post, if we brighten the image in the middle, we get a mysterious IP address with an unknown purpose and a jack-in-the-box silhouette, starting what is now deemed as the Project Playtime ARG, or alternate reality game, where fans could use this IP address and other clues to search for secrets and teasers for this upcoming title early. However, when looking up the IP address location in real life, users noticed the address led approximately to a graveyard in New Jersey, and quickly fans began to speculate that this graveyard would hold secrets to the upcoming game we were looking for, some even claiming we would need to go into the graveyard and dig up the graves to find more hints for the game. This was obviously not true, and the devs actually had to make a statement telling people to not go digging up graves. In reality, the IP address led to an FTP server where you could connect a remote computer with a username and password from home and access a bunch of hidden files over the next couple weeks with all sorts of new teasers and images for Project Playtime, allowing the fans and community to interact and solve puzzles together to build hype. Now, I won't go into the entire ARG and all the puzzles because they would literally take hours, but after a few weeks of solving ciphers, spectrograms, secret Twitter accounts, hidden messages, and more, it would all lead to one final gif of a Playtime Co employee named Rowan Stoll getting eaten by the Jack-in-the-Box toy before, who was revealed to be the game's next main villain, Boxy Boo, ending the ARG. And following this reveal, the devs would finally release an official cinematic and gameplay trailer for Project Playtime, where in it they fully reveal the new character Boxy and the game's official release date of December 6, 2022, causing the hype for the title to explode as fans turned eager for the release. And after a few minor hiccups with the title actually getting delayed until the 12th of December, Project Playtime, the multiplayer ASIM, would finally release to the public, and the game worked pretty simple. In a lobby, there were 6 players and 1 monster. The players tried to complete mini games on these pillars consisting of a Simon piano game, a dot memory game, and a repeat after me game to collect toy parts. After collecting 6 parts, they can go on the train at the end of the map and escape, giving them the win, while the monsters simply ran around the map trying to stop them and dump them into the Huggy pits, where they fight for their life waiting for another player to try and pull them out before the Huggies get to them, fall in 3 times in a game, and die instantly. The major twist is that after playing each game, the players would earn tickets, allowing them to upgrade their abilities, making them faster, quicker with the puzzles, or get the ability to heal injured teammates, among many others, while the monsters, on the other hand, had 3 different classes. Huggy Wuggy with 2 abilities, one to charge up players in a linear direction, one-shotting them, and another to place many Huggies that call out when players go near them. Mommy Longlegs with 3 abilities, one to grapple around the map, one to shoot webs at players slowing them down, and another to very shortly see where all the players were around the map. And finally, there was Boxy Boo, the flagship character with increased mobility and 2 abilities, one to grab players from afar and another to spring up and launch himself large distances, plus a passive radar ability where Boxy's music plays when he's near a player. Alongside this, the monsters were also given sabotages, a number of abilities also unlocked by tickets that would instead hurt the surrounding players, like allowing them to fog up the area, disable GrabPacks, or even shut all of the movable doors, locking players in certain areas. Now, upon release, the game faced a decent bit of controversy, as for one, the game's cosmetic system involved a Fortnite-style battle pass among many shop skins, a style of marketing most people aren't a huge fan of, along with the game being extremely unfinished upon release. Sure, it was labeled as an early access title, but on release it only offered 2 maps, a UI that looked like it was still in its prototyping phase at best, and so many bugs that the game was almost hilariously unplayable at times, especially since at launch these servers were extremely hard to access at all with the heavy volume of new players. But despite all of these glaring issues, this didn't stop people from absolutely loving the game. On launch day, the game peaked at nearly 20,000 players on Steam alone, outpacing even some of the biggest titles in the same genre on its first day, was probably gaining thousands of dollars by the minute, and quickly the title worked up a large fan base of people giving the game a try, including people who weren't even fans of Poppy Playtime and just like the way the game worked. And this is all for good reason. As bugs aside, the game was simply just a lot of fun when it worked properly. The gameplay loop, despite being repetitive, was super well made, taking inspiration from games like Dead by Daylight but with an indie horror coat of paint. The system of gaining tickets and upgrading your perks each game felt super rewarding. The skins were extremely high quality, and being chased by the monsters feels right out of the games it's directly inspired by that put it on the map. Furthermore, they had ambitiously said on their Steam page they plan for the game to fully leave early access and complete development in the first half of 2023, so fans had hope the many previously listed issues would be ironed out shortly in the coming months. But this still left a small problem. Sure, this game was fun and loved by tens of thousands of fans at the start, but like all multiplayer games, they needed to release updates and new content to keep the title fresh for everybody playing the game on a daily basis, or else it would get boring. And at first, they aided this issue with small holiday events like Easter and St. Patrick's Day, where they added new theming, new skins, and even 2 new puzzles, a claw machine one and a marble maze one, keeping the game a bit fresh. But the first real content update came a few months after launch with the release of Project Playtime Phase 2. On May 31st, after some teasers and trailers, the developers would drop the first major content drop to Project Playtime, where they would fully revamp the title. They would refresh the toy box with a bunch of good-looking skins, patched a ton of the bugs to fix the shaky launch of Phase 1, updated the game's UI to look a bit more professional, added another puzzle where you rotate images to make a collage, added some balance changes to the player perks and the monsters, removing Mommy Longlegs' web ability to even her out among the rest, and slowing Boxy's spring ability down a bit. They updated the tutorial, added new ways to earn XP, added new perks, fixed up the animations and jump scares, and most importantly, added a third new map to the game called Destroy a Toy, a part in the factory where toys were brought to be burned to shreds and destroyed. This update was absolutely massive and was exactly what fans were looking for in the game in terms of updates. They even added a poster teasing these smiling critters for the very first time months early, giving us more looks into Chapter 3 while we waited, so to say this update was a success was an understatement. There were still some major flaws with the game, like tons of other bugs not addressed in this update, performance issues with the massive new map, and also they updated the Steam page, removing the part saying the game would release in the first half of 2023, suggesting the devs would need more time to finish it up, of course. But regardless, the game was still holding a concurrent player base above 4,000 at release, a far cry from the 16,000 at launch, but considering the game was half a year old, maintaining thousands of concurrent players was definitely a success, and it seemed like Project Playtime was turning out to be a big hit. The devs even held community events around the title, like a live stream where they played the game with fans, building even more of a fan base. But this is where things would suddenly start to go south. See, behind the scenes, the developers had a growing problem hiding underneath the surface that they didn't tell us. The whole time they were developing Project Playtime, they weren't working on the main game like at all. They had actually set the main game's development completely to the side in order to push Project and its first big update out as quickly as possible to get it on its feet. And so naturally, after this update release, they had to delegate a big chunk of the Project Playtime team back over to work on the main title, leaving a much smaller group of developers to create updates for Project, a team that began to shrink more and more as months passed and Poppy Playtime needed more and more resources. This is where things really started to plummet for Project Playtime. Suddenly, all of the holiday events for skins and whatnot simply stopped happening without explanation, and for the next few months, the game would sit almost completely vacant of any major or small updates as this newly established established fanbase anticipated the next big content update to succeed Phase 2. And following this large multi-month break, the devs finally had something new to reveal to us. The next major update to the game, Project Playtime Phase 3, releasing on October 25th. This next phase, like the last one, introduced a brand new map called Misfit Pit and advertised new skins and features to build on the early access title, seemingly showing they were still working on Project. However, with the much smaller team, this update had a lot less resources put into it, and when the phase inevitably dropped, it really showed, as this is one of the worst updates I've ever seen in any multiplayer game ever. First off, when the day of October 25th came, at first the update for whatever reason just didn't release, and they didn't really ever explain why outside of a couple random Discord messages reassuring us it was coming. But as time passed, nobody knew what was going on. They never tweeted any public updates or gave any announcements outside of Discord, almost as if they were trying to hide this release. Especially since after hours of delay, in the middle of the night, they would suddenly shadow drop the phase finally to a horrible reception, to say the least. In terms of updates, the title would feature some more balancing changes, a few new skin additions and UI upgrades, even adding an intro cinematic, among a couple other small things, which are all positives. However, that's literally all for the good stuff. Along with these changes, the developers removed the tutorial for the game, removed the lobby in favor of just a bare bones menu, removed the Huggy Pit when players get caught, so now you just have to sit there after dying, removed the server mechanism in the game, only allowing for players to queue into random lobbies, literally making it impossible to play with your friends, if you can believe it. They removed the text chat in the game in favor of a limiting scroll wheel, which was basically useless, removed the hand grapples around the map that allowed players to jump around the factory quicker, removed the battle pass in favor of a pass that only provided tickets for every tier and no skins, and they even removed daily rewards from the game, making it harder to level up. I still to this day don't know why they removed so much stuff from the game, but it's safe to say the players that were fans of the title before were not fans of these changes in the least bit. The update took away way more features than it added, and the anger this sent throughout the fanbase really showed in its player numbers, as the game tanked from 4,000 players in Phase 2 to quarter that with Phase 3 at 800. It's one thing to not hit your peak from launch in Phase 1, since the numbers were heavily inflated from random people trying the game once and never playing again, but losing 3/4 of your established fanbase after launch in just a few months is a massive red flag, and this is a number that would keep decreasing lower and lower into the low hundreds just months after the phase. The update was so bad, in fact, that players even figured out how to revert the game back through Steam to Phase 2 just so they could play with friends and with the old game mechanics again, because the old update was just that much better. And again, with the extremely small team working on Project that was declining more and more in popularity by the day, and the constant complaining by fans who wanted an answer, after a while the game went completely silent. As I'm recording this was the last phase or even update ever released into Project Playtime, as the devs have delegated seemingly their entire team in producing the main title, leaving this game in the dust, and it shows. As once Chapter 3 would end up releasing and Chapter 4 would start development, despite the massive jump in numbers for Project back up to 3,000 just with the release of Chapter 3, no updates were released for the celebration, and in October the game will have officially gone a whole year without a single update. It's gotten so bad that other ripoffs of the same game's name, like Project Playtime Multiplayer on Roblox, which has added new content for Chapter 3 and has given the game consistent updates, even if not the greatest ones, still boasts more players than Project, the game it's trying to rip off. I should also note that while making this video, the Roblox ripoff actually got taken down, but they've since rebranded the title without Poppy characters, and the data is still the same. It's more popular than Project Playtime. So this brings us back to the question, what happened to Project Playtime? Why did the developers remove so much content from the game in the last update? And why did they choose to completely abandon the title, leaving once tens of thousands of fans without a game, not ever mentioning what happened to it even to this day? Well, in my opinion, it seems like despite the game's success at first, the devs quickly realized how hard maintaining a multiplayer game would be. They'd have to drop tons of new updates to keep the game alive, aside from maps, skins, rewards, and more. Something really hard for a small indie studio to do while also producing an entirely different game on the side. They found more success in February of 2024 when they launched Poppy Playtime Forever, another multiplayer Poppy Playtime game, this time developed on Roblox by a third party, which took way less resources to build, was easier to update, was multiplayer and could be played by all platforms from mobile to PC, and was made by a separate studio, Jazzwares, allowing them to fully put their attention into the main title, sort of giving Project no purpose, especially since Poppy Forever somewhat recently dropped a new game mode, which is basically just another Project ripoff, kind of making it obsolete, even though that game isn't doing that good numbers wise. But again, it really doesn't matter that much because it's made by a separate studio. This is really sad to see because Project, despite its many flaws at first, is still a ton of fun. Its gameplay style is unique, it fits the game it's based off of perfectly, and when consistently updated, is super replayable to help fans pass the time while waiting for the new chapters that take months to get developed. But despite tons of hope and desperation for the devs to revive the title or at least explain what happened to it, Project Playtime has been left in the shadows and for now is best known as a relic from a lost era.